right, so let's start off with a little bit of WordPress news. And luckily, it's going to be pretty light for this time of year, but there was a State of the Word presentation yesterday, I believe. At least it was the recording I watched. So there's a WordCamp happening in Tokyo. As part of that, kind of the end of the year wrap up, there was a few people who spoke about the State of the Word. Fortunately, there's a lot of WordPress drama that's been going on lately. Very light on that. There's a little bit of a mention of that, but again, if you want to hear that, you can watch the whole State of the Word yourself. But things that I found interesting from this, these are just, what I took out as highlights. If people recall, over the past couple of years, there was this idea of these like 4 phases of Gutenberg. If people aren't familiar, Gutenberg is kind of what the block editor is called these days. So we're kind of in this phase 3 of Gutenberg, or starting phase 3. It's this collaboration phase. So there's a lot of similarities of this to, especially I mentioned like Google Docs seems to be the analogy that's used quite often. So one of the things that's coming up soon, in fact, I could be wrong, but I believe some of these are actually available if you load so there's a Gutenberg plugin you could load, obviously on a test site, but that's where you can sort of get a sneak preview of some of these features that are eventually going to be, built into WordPress core. But some of the changes that are happening in this kind of phase 3, one really is about the writing experience. So that was, I know, like when people went to this visual block editor, it was a bit jarring for some people. I think they were kind of used to having the old interface, the old classic editor interface, where it kind of separated the content from the design. So one thing that they're adding into that writing experience is also this collaboration piece too. It's this ability to add inline comments like to a blog post. So if there's multiple collaborators on a post, kind of again, if you've used Google Docs with multiple people, you can kind of see this, or even like imagine like a Microsoft Word document, people are marking up things. So that also includes some sort of notifications as well. So if you're a collaborator, I don't know exactly how that's going to work, but it seems like this is more of a back end kind of piece in the admin side of things, that you'll see that somebody left you a comment, etc. This, from my understanding, this is not for front end visitors of the site. This is more of collaborators on the site. And then that design experience, I jumped ahead a little bit, but that was another big change too. So, right now there's this focus mode. People may have used it especially if you're, a blog writer, and that's primarily how you use your website. But now there's something kind of in between. It's this write mode versus design mode. So the write mode, as they demoed it kind of quickly in the presentation, it really just allows a person to focus on the content of a page or a post. So things like the text, so the block editor, it really lets you focus on the text blocks, the media blocks, etc. And it kind of hides some of the things that you can do to sort of break a design, so like padding, margins, etc. So if you think about this, who is this for? If you're working on a site that perhaps has multiple collaborators, you want to give people some access to make changes to, as I said, the content, but not to the back end design of a page or a post. That's where it seems like something like this might be useful. So more to come on this. Again, this was very much in a beta phase, from what I understand. But I think this is something that's also available in the Gutenberg plugin right now, if you want to test that out. A couple other ones. So in terms of builds, enhancements to the build process itself, and we started to see this a little bit in the latest release of WordPress, which is this block bindings to custom fields. So right now it's not the easiest thing to do. So what they're talking about is expanding this a bit. One thing I did find kind of neat was having the ability to actually view and edit those custom fields in a data view. So, if you think about this is probably the closest analogy I can think about this is like, let's say if you're looking at a list of today in the current version of WordPress, if you're looking at a list of your posts or pages and you have that quick edit feature, so a quick edit while you're looking at a list of things, that's basically a data view. You can change something like, the author, et cetera, et cetera. Well, in this idea of a data view, you can also view and edit things like your custom fields. So it's kind of nice. You don't have to jump into a page to find that stuff. And then also the integration of custom fields with the query loop block, really being able to see things real time in a query loop based on if you're tying it to custom fields. That looks interesting. Again, I think it's going to be a while until this all really gets tied together. The custom fields block binding. Every time I try it, it's not quite there yet, but it seems like it's hopefully going to be improving a bit in the coming releases in 2025. A couple other quick ones. Again, I don't want to read everything in here, but developer enhancements, some things. I think some of these we actually saw in the previous release too. Letting plugins add templates to a theme a little bit easier. One I found quite interesting though is this interactivity API. So this was something introduced, I think, early 2024, maybe even late last year. This is the idea of having a highly responsive site, meaning any action that you do on the site, it's basically not going back to the server to reload a page. Is doing everything kind of within the browser. The demo that they've been showing over the past year or so was really neat. It was like a movie lookup site, kind of like an IMDb kind of thing. Well, they're saying now that ability to make a site leverage this interactivity API could be something as simple as just turning it on at a site level for your site. I mean, we'll see. I want to see how that's really going to work, but without doing any extra coding, maybe having the ability to have your site almost fully loaded in a browser. So again, it could be good for some sites, not for all. Other things about responsive design tools, and again, hopefully we'll see these a little bit more, is having the ability to set custom device breakpoints. So that's, let's say if you have mobile devices or, today you're kind of limited in the mobile preview view of what you can do. This allows you to more fine tune that, like many page builders allow you to do that. And I'll just kind of wrap these kind of last ones. Playground, we've shown Playground a few times in our demos here. I don't know if we'll be using it tonight or not, but there's some nice little enhancements to that. One I think that reminds me of some of the other offline WordPress tools is this idea of blueprints, having some predefined configurations of WordPress that you can start up, including things like preloaded. It'll create a playground for you with some plugins already loaded. One's kind of a funny one, having a playground block. So you can embed a playground inside of a post or a page, which again, if you're doing like a tutorials or something, that could be something useful. And then finally, the kind of an oddball one, this like the whole data liberation project, which is around allowing you to easily import or export data from your website. Well, they showed a funny example of that, of like a browser extension, which I'm not sure if it's live now or not, but a browser extension that allows you to basically copy any site, not even a WordPress site. Again, your mileage may vary how well it copies it, but basically to copy it into a Playground instance, and it'll turn that site into blocks. So that's one I definitely want a demo at some point too, and see kind of how that works. So some interesting stuff. When is all this stuff going to come in 2025? Probably things will come and go as the roadmap dictates. But I think it's nice to see at least there is some innovation on the horizon. And again, I'm sure more to come as we get later into the year. Peter, I don't know, did you see anything else? Did you get a chance to watch the State of the Word? You're on mute. Sorry.
Yeah, I haven't watched it yet. For a couple, I didn't have a lot of time, and the way things have been, I was like, I wanted the summary, which you just gave me, so fantastic. Thank you for that. Thank you for that help. I think it is really interesting thinking about what the next phases are and what will or won't apply to the different users, folks that we work with, and all. And I know it's always a topic of discussion to see. So it'll be really interesting. I know the things with collaboration, it keeps being kind of packaged with, improvements to the overall editing and management experience versus just collaboration. Because when I think of collaboration, I go, I don't need that. But all the other things, if it improves the overall environment, then I look forward to it.
Yeah, like the data views thing, we talked about that before. They didn't really mention that outright, but I can see by the end of 2025 that becoming almost the de facto admin interface, so seeing something that looks more like what you see today in the site editor kind of thing. But yeah, we'll see how far that gets.
And I'll say it one more time, and then I'll let Sue.
Okay.
But just real quick, the one thing that throws me. So I just want to to explain, especially the people who aren't as deep into this, that whole naming of this interface environment as data views is, I think it almost causes like confusion and like, oh, that's data, and it's the lists, it's your interface too. So this concept of a data view, I think we'll keep trying to make sure that what we're talking about is well defined, as opposed to this whole, oh, is that a view into a database or something?
It needs a rebranding.
I think so. There's a few things in that one is one pretty high to the top of the list for me, because it just, even for me, I'm like, data. Oh, okay. You mean the way you look at pages in the site editor or something like that. Hi, Sue. What's up?
Hi. It's the last sentence on this slide. Are they? I might have missed it because I'm forced to be like deleting stuff off a backup drive before tomorrow. But so I didn't pay 100% attention. I should have. Is that an existing browser extension or is that a goal?
They showed it live, so
I can go to a Squarespace or a Wix site and it converts it into blocks and it kind of looks the same.
Yeah, and it makes sense. I mean, if you look at it's somehow reading the page,
Well,
and they showed it. It was kind of a process. It almost seemed like you click on this extension, and they showed it real quick, but the window was off to the side, and it seemed to be like from reading the window. I should have kept a screenshot of what it was, but it was kind of like it's almost like copying, importing, but it was showing you the progress of what it was doing, and in the end,
it turns it into WordPress.
yeah, in a playground, they created blocks
Pictures
for it.
And you put it into Playground.
Yep.
And then you can download that, back it up,
Yeah.
zip it.
I get it. Well, once it's in Playground, then sure, you can do whatever you want with it. As if you load a plugin on there to export.
And when do they think us mere mortals might get our hands on something like that?
Take a look at So I didn't catch the name of the extension. If you watch, it's towards the end of the talk. Yeah, they showed it. I didn't catch the name of it, but it sounded like it's something that is available for demoing now. So
and they just sort of clicked it, and this all started.
Yeah. They showed it after the fact. And I don't know how complex the site was, or I assume it was just a page that it probably not a full site, but it seemed.
Well, I mean, if it's a brochure, I was thinking most what's at Wix are brochure sites anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, I want one. Who's got one?
I put a link in there that is off of the page that is the data liberation page, and
you put a link where?
Phase 3, liberating data from closed platforms. Phase 3, it's a browser extension with a link to
that's it.
GitHub, and of course GitHub, right? So
where's the link?
I may have responded directly to somebody. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Everyone.
So more to come. That one I think would be a fun one to demo out a little bit.
Darn, that's like.
It looks neat. All right,
yeah, with the GitHub, when you see all the code, what helps is when you scroll down, anybody who hasn't used it, where then you get kind of the explanation of what the thing is. So it's not it could work as a plugin, but it's not a plugin in the repository to easily pull into your website, that type of thing.
Yeah, they said it's alpha. It's not even beta yet, but
they made it sound like it's a browser.
But the user, Ashfame, first class.
Cool.
Yeah. Very good.
Wow. Okay, that was some news. Thank you, Ray.
Get the best for last. All right. Speaking of tools and plugins spotlight. Peter, you got anything for us this month?
Yeah. I've got a couple of things. One, so this is a little different than usual. I'm not showing a particular. Let me close this. You see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So there's a couple that I want to make sure we're extending the news. We're not getting into all the craziness, but there are a couple of things that kind of matter right now. The repository, if you want to get into kind of the nitty gritty of what's going on on the news, there's a number of sites. The WP Tavern is a popular site. It's always been a popular news site. It went into a weird hiatus. There's kind of a lot of things behind it, but I found the repository is an effort to really kind of do some pretty strong and just looking into the details of it. So that's where you can learn more about some of the stuff that's going on, looking for community leaders, governance reform, because of some of the stuff that's gone on. If you want to learn about what's been going on with the lawsuit that exists between WordPress Automatic, WordPress.org, Matt Mullenweg, and WP Engine, you get some information there. So this is a good resource. One of the things before I get into into the one I really want to kind of at least introduce people to is the very interesting WordPress.org login introduces mandatory pineapple pizza checkbox. Has anybody experienced?
I thought that was a joke when I first saw.
No, that's because of the ruling by the judge in the Ninth Circuit.
Yeah.
And they had to get rid of the box that said, I'm
WP.
not affiliated with WordPress, WP Engine.
Yep.
The Ninth Circuit did not tell them to put the pineapple box there.
No.
They told them to get rid of the other one.
That's
this is just to show, in case you see it, this is a, what's the right word? What word am I looking for? This is
childish.
This is childish, stupid. I'm sorry. Because if I go to log in and I don't check this, pineapple is delicious on pizza, and I go to log in, it says I have to check that box.
Yep.
Okay. I want people to be aware that this.
No, Peter, it's because of the functionality it took to build the box. They didn't want to rip out the functionality, so they put in a stupid question.
Yeah,
no, that's not true. They deleted the box. It was gone.
It was gone.
Then they put this one in.
Yes.
Yeah, it was gone for about a day or 2 days or whatever, and then they put this one up.
Oh God, this is
intentional poking.
You should listen to your attorneys.
This is Matt giving the court the finger.
Yeah. Sorry, people, but I just want, for those who have a reason to go into .org as a login, we get our plugins there. You can do it without logging in. But if you have an account, if you want to save favorites, things like this.
You need it for Slack. You need it for Gravatar. You need it for the forum support. Anything that has WordPress, mostly the Slack. But yeah.
Could an explanation be that this replaces the I'm a human box for a CAPTCHA replacement?
No,
because it's required.
This is not reCAPTCHA.
No, this is basically a middle finger to the judge.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Yeah, unfortunately, people, but it is our tool and it is something. So to be aware, if you went there and go, what is this? It's like, okay, if I got to play this silly, childish game, let me click that and then I can log in.
We live in Connecticut, home.
And this is just personal opinion, but I think you hit it right there. This is a child showing everybody that this is his toy.
Yep.
He owns it and he can do what he wants with it. And I think you're right. He's being childish.
Yeah.
Mike's got his hand raised. Mike,
yep.
Just a quick question. Earlier, I think it was Peter had a screen that said titled the repository.
Yes.
Is that part of WP Tavern? Yeah. Where?
It is the repository. So there's an email and I think they got it, the repository.email, so you can sign up for their newsletter. But then they keep everything here. So the repository.email, it is not the Tavern. The Tavern still exists. This is the WP Tavern, which is a little bit more in line with WordPress.org.
I like the pizza.
So the .email is a website.
Yeah, it is a top level domain.
Top level domain. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll put this.
Lisa she put the link in the chat. So thank you. All right. Anything else, Peter?
Yeah, I do. So the one thing I want to make sure that gets a little attention. It's a little early, but it's something called Influence WP. Influence WP is a project of a few people, but primarily Ryan Logan. It really is. Ryan Logan he's been on podcasts. He's out there doing some stuff. I'll show you a YouTube channel, but Ryan has got a great goal here, which is to have an honest, positive, trusted source for WordPress related things. And especially when it gets even to the deals, because he does, he's got I'll put the links in, but his Influence WP tool here, influencewp.com, has a lot of it's building up the directory, but even having things like deals. He talks a lot about what he's got going here on his YouTube channel. One of the things that's kind of interesting is this the WordPress false advertising that happens a lot in terms of junk, what are called junk affiliates. And it's something that you could do a search for something, all of a sudden, oh, Elementor, and I got a special deal, and you go click on it, and it's not a special deal, except for now somebody's getting paid because they brought a link through, and it's kind of scammy and dishonest and whatever. So what Ryan is really trying to do here is create a source that is kind of scam free. There's no affiliate links. He's got a whole way you buy into it to get to the deals, but it's for a general consumer, it's $6 for the year, so 50 cents a month. But it's primarily just to kind of cover his hosting fees. He's not getting any affiliate amounts. And to anyone who doesn't know, an affiliate is like when you get a link that says, "Oh, this is a great product." You click on it, you buy it. The person who said it was a great product had a special link that now they get paid for it. So that's why you have folks out there doing a whole lot of "this is the best thing you've ever seen" kind of selling, because they're making money doing it. And this is an effort to kind of say, one, be aware that that's how the purchasing of things might happen, but two, here's a resource. And in fact, setting up with partners that are going to post things, he's got a simple vetting kind of a process. But if you've got something, a service that you're selling, you can do this and get listed through this Influence WP site. And it's at the beginning. He's spending a lot of time. I really love the concept behind it is to just be a source for vetted, not scammy. If his whole thing with, if you're going to offer a deal, it's got to be a deal that you're not like doing a better deal on your site unless it's like Black Friday. So it's an honest deal kind of thing. Here's where now if I go and I say, "Oh, I'm interested in Mail Poet," and then it's going to say, "Not seeing the deal instructions, join as a partner or member," and then how to do that kind of stuff. So as a partner, one of those things that also means that like you can list products and things like that. So at its infancy, just kind of getting the word out here. I know we have folks of different levels here and all that might look at it, but I'm looking forward to this growing into something pretty great. You can actually see the deal, like the Mail Poet would be 30% off the first year. But again, the link is not an affiliate link. And very last thing, only because Ray, when you mentioned, always looking for speakers, one thing we never try, and I'm curious if any of our other meetup organizers do, is something like the WPSpeakers.com website, and where you can find a speaker who, the list of people who have, volunteered to be potentially available to talk about a topic, that type of thing. So just when you had mentioned that, I said, here's another thing, that another resource out there we haven't used. I'm curious if anybody else has even is aware of this or used it. Most of us do our own everything, but there you go.
That's cool. I like the influencewp.com.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this catching some momentum. I'll put that in the link if you haven't already.
Sounds good.
Let me stop sharing.
All righty. So let me, again, we're talking about we're doing away with slides, except for we're going to reuse some slides. We're recycling some slides from 3 years ago. It's kind of funny. This is just totally random. December 13th, 2021. We did this whole presentation, which you actually find on YouTube. So on our YouTube channel, if you want to watch the whole thing. So this was during our series where we were building a website. It was our fictional animal shelter website, and we were doing just, every month or so we were doing some improvements to it. So these slides I think are still relevant today, despite them being 3 years old. So just kind of setting context before we jump into SEO plugins, like just again, we have different levels of people who attend our meetup. So what is SEO, et cetera, et cetera. So I won't try not to drain these too much, but again, just at a high level, I do think it's important to think about this, because especially when we talk a little bit later, about the future of search and SEO and all that. Some of these things may be changing. So, but again, at a high level, how do search engines like Google work? This idea of a search index and then a search algorithm. So the index is basically the whole collection of data, from websites across the world, crawled by spiders, so your site itself is probably being crawled, whether you know it or not. And then the magic algorithm is the secret sauce that these different search engines use to really find results in that index. So again, just real high level, here's the process. They crawl your sites, they index it. There's many factors, mysterious factors, constantly changing that have to do with ranking, and then you get your search results at the end. So these concepts we'll talk about a little bit later as we talk about the future of search. I just wanted to throw out the vocabulary there so we're familiar with it. Not all searches are equal. So this idea of search intent is something pretty important. So, 3 of the common search intents that people do, one is just navigational, like the site you want to go to, Google, YouTube, it's Amazon, whatever. The other one's informational. So, how do I make a pizza? What's the weather like today? Blah, blah, blah. And then transactional, if you're searching for prices on something, et cetera. So those are there's many others, but these are kind of the 3 big ones. So again, just kind of keep that in mind for later. It won't get this a lot, but this is changing all the time. But this often comes up, especially for me, and I working with small business owners. Built a lot of sites for local small businesses. They're always like, "Hey, how come when I look at, I search from home, and this other person, searches from their home, we're seeing different things? Why?" It's like, well, some of it is partly that search intent. So if you type in that search phrase differently, you're going to get different results. Where you are, geographic location may influence what you see, and other stuff. They're always tracking you, browser history, mobile versus desktop, depending what device you're looking at, and then paid ads. If the search phrase happens to be something that is desirable enough, you may get some paid advertisement there. So, these are this goes back to the whole, the magic / algorithm and all these other factors that really do influence search results. So SEO itself, a very big, complex topic. But one of the things again is sometimes this is a bit mysterious for people of why do results look different? Again, I'll skip that part of why things, but just I'll kind of wrap this up with this because tonight's topic I think directly relates to this idea of the 2 terms are on-page versus off-page SEO. So on-page SEO is really what we're going to be talking about primarily tonight. So, those things on your website that influence how your site gets indexed, how it may show up in search results, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the thing I really say that's within your control, the on-page SEO things we'll discuss today. There's a whole other world out there that, it's called off-page SEO. So there's lots and lots of other factors to that, some of the big ones that Google talks about, and again, still today, is this idea of relevance, authority, and trust. So, is the information that you're presenting, is it relevant to the person searching? Authority, are you who you say you are? Are you a spammy site? How long have you been around for? The age of a site is still something that's taken into consideration. And then trust. Sometimes trust is a funny thing, but there's ways you can game that. But trust is do other people reference you? That's the whole idea of backlinks. So some of those things, people will tell you that they can help you influence those. Some can, but again, these are more of much of that is off of your website. That's some other process handling that. And again, we'll go through a lot of this today, but these are the things we're probably going to cover a bit more today. So what are the things that you can focus on just at a broad level? Quality content, that's always a thing. That has nothing to do with the search engine plugin. Just make good content. We have several bloggers on here today. Keep writing good blog content. People will find you. That should be your primary goal. Then there's all these other internal things we'll look at a little bit. Structural things behind the scenes. Site speed. If your site's too slow, if it doesn't look good on mobile, et cetera, et cetera. And just kind of finally a couple of these other things too. If it's not secure, these days most sites are HTTPS friendly, so you won't get a crazy warning about something being insecure. I still see quite a few though. And then things about images, et cetera. So this is the stuff we're going to kind of talk about today, the on-page SEO piece. Peter, any other things to throw in quick before we get to the actual the showdown of
no, it's just that it's really interesting, and I think we'll talk about this kind of as we go through things, and I invite other folks especially we have people of different levels of expertise, and some people who might be very committed to a certain approach. What I'm really fascinated by is what continues to change, and yet what hasn't changed at all. And that's why I always, when you have really good, valuable content, and then what I also will say kind of as part of this is, I talk a lot about things like accessibility, and accessibility is a big factor in on-page SEO, because it's all about making something easy to read and easy to scan and organized and make sense. And if it makes sense to a human, if it makes sense to a screen reader, if it makes sense to a computer like or an indexing tool like Google and all the other tools that are out there, then that is a huge part of that on-page SEO. Where at maybe towards the end, and Ray, I'm not sure exactly. And one of the things I like to kind of open it up to, because I'm kind of curious of other people's, feedback, is how are people searching now? Not from I'm making a page, but I'm doing a search. And I know the way
I'll show an example of that later. We talk about future of search. So keep that. I know our minds work the same.
Because it is changing.
Yes. So let me again. I'll hand it back off to Peter. And so again, we're loosey-goosey, but we're trying to do a couple of structured things. So just again here, showing using the power of search to help set up our agenda here. So when we're talking about SEO plugins, why would you want an SEO plugin? What does it let you do? These are just some of the key features. I mean, obviously, there's a lot more to this, but I do think this is very true. So one of the things that these plugins allow you to do pretty easily is do things like meta tag management. I'll talk about, maybe I'll do a quick overview of what that is before we get deeper into the plugins itself. So it allows you to do some things that are not natively exposed through the regular WordPress interface to you, the admin interface to you. So it lets you, view those things and manipulate those. Some of the other plugins will give you things like content analysis. We'll show some different examples of that, looking at like how readable is your content, suggesting improvements, other things like that. These other things called like sitemaps. We'll see some plugins allow you to do that. That's again another way to allow these spiders or the crawler things to better understand the structure of your site, not just the content, but sort of how things go together. So that's basically what a sitemap is. Some of them will do other things like internal links, image storage, etc. So but at its basic, I'd almost say this is always ranked in the order of why you want these. Really number one is the meta tag management. And we'll talk, I have my opinions about that later when we talk about the future of search. So I'll shut up in 1 second, but just the reason we're doing tonight's presentation too, and we caveated that of, we're not going to show every SEO plugin out there because there's lots of them. There's some that Yoast is probably the one most people are familiar with, always for better or for worse, is the most popular one. But these days, there's so many options out there. It can be very confusing. And I'll preface it, the ones that we're going to show we're not saying they're the best ones, definitely not. They're the ones that we're familiar with. And in fact, I will almost say at a certain point, this may be blasphemy, but at a certain point, they're all kind of the same, or they're very similar. There's going to be some nuance. So I'm hoping that's what we're going to show tonight. So Peter's going to show one. I'm going to show one. We're going to kind of just go back and forth. So we're not just, each of us talking for too long. I'm talking long right now, but we'll show you how these things compare, because I think you're going to find that many of them have the basics that are the same. I think where they differentiate themselves are like the bells and whistles, or maybe the extras that they do. So that good? So Peter, do you mind being the guinea pig to start off? Do you want me? Either way, whatever. And you're on mute.
Yeah, I'll be happy to start now. In fact, I'm going to append to what you've talked about. So this is a good segue. So let me share that screen. Okay, so those popular plugins, right? So everybody, as Ray mentioned, everybody knows Yoast. Yoast is the default for many. It's the default in many conversations. What's the first thing you do? You load the Yoast SEO plugin. It is the one and only plugin that you should ever use for search engine optimization. is a false statement, because there's a lot of options, and in fact a lot of people moved from Yoast. So just for make sure everybody knows what we're looking at. So this is the famous Yoast plugin. Yoast has a commercial side. In fact, when you load Yoast, you get, and with some of the number of other, you'll get like the sell up, the promotion, the things like that on. But Yoast, to me, and one of the reasons why I personally moved away from Yoast is because of its focus on keywords, its focus on telling me how to write, turning flags on and making sure that things are, oh, you got to do it this way. And I'm like, years and years and years ago, I stopped paying attention to that kind of SEO. It didn't work for me. It didn't work for my writing style. And quite honestly, as the search engines got better at understanding content intent, what is in a page, is it valuable to somebody who's looking for something about a thing, kind of paid off. But it took a while to get there, and there'll maybe be far more people arguing against me along the way because of the dedication to keyword search and looking for densities and all the stuff that goes into SEO. Not something that I'm an expert at, nor anything that I actually felt was necessary. I would rank high based on good content, meeting a need, and of course, you especially had an advantage if you did the right things in the local market. So rank math, another big one, huge. And one of the things I put here is the megabyte size here. That's the size of the files that get extracted and loaded onto your website when you load this plugin. So when you load Yoast, it is adding 12.4 megabytes of files onto your site. Rank Math, 8.8. The all-in-one SEO, very popular, except for, I'm not sure, let's see how many, over 10 million. No, that's Yoast, sorry. All-in-one is over 3 million. Been around for a long time. I've not used it. 14.5 megabytes of files. SEO Press, Ray, I think that's going to be your featured one. 7.8. For me, Slim SEO, I'm going to talk about it. 0.7 megabytes. Much slimmer. Doesn't get in my way. Doesn't try to tell me to do things. Takes care of things. Can be a set it and forget it kind of thing. Pretty straightforward. I'm going to walk through. So that's our kind of deep dive. The one I'm going to dive into, the SEO framework. Another one, which looks like this. If you see it, this has far fewer. It comes up, but I don't think it's nearly as used or popular. I don't hear it talk about it too much. One I do hear more about, although its popularity 100,000. Active installs, is the Squirrely SEO. But Squirrely is 17 megabytes of files, so I don't know what it does, but it takes up a whole lot of space. I'm talking about today. Let me close all this. I'm talking about Slim SEO. I like this is in the repository, so this is WordPress.org. In the plugins, you can do a search for Slim SEO. If you do a search for SEO, it'll be one of the ones just to prove it. If we do just SEO, here we go, Yoast, Rank Math. There's Slim. And what I like about their page is they put two of the most valuable of YouTube videos that kind of talk about it. So and anything that I'm going to talk about, these guys go into more efficient detail on it. This video right here, Jackson's video is really good. I like it a lot. And they talk about like why they moved away from some of the tools that they have and how much they like Slim SEO because of its approach and its simplicity. One thing that's also kind of nice is there is a demo. If you go to their website now, Slim SEO is completely free. The SEO part of it. They do have two other add-in products, but if you're looking at what can help you with those meta tags, with your open graph images, a number of things that I'll get into some level of detail to show you about. That's all free. That's all in the free plugin. What they do sell in addition to that. Their suite includes a schema plugin, which now schema gets into a level of on-page SEO that really explains to the search engines, here's what this page is about, here's the details. That's when you start talking about things like recipes and all kinds of very specific things. You can have custom schema that explain things that it goes, oh, okay. I'm not getting into that level here, but that is a tool. I don't own this tool because I have a schema plugin from the Astra suite of services that I got on a lifetime deal a long time ago, which does, and there's a number of schema design tools out there. So the other product that they have is the link manager, which is, again, these would be parts of the premium of other SEO tools too. They decoupled it, but you could still buy into it, which is, building those internal links, having things, making all of your content interconnected, which again helps the search engines see your other content, see that you're providing kind of a valuable resource with, oh, I wrote about this here and I want to make sure you can know about it and things like that. So that is their on their premium offering. What I also like, if you go to the website, there's a link, but I will share it here. Like many tools now, because of the playground, that open in the browser thing, and also another tool called InstaWP, some vendors are using for demos. There is a demo for Slim SEO. You go in there, and so I'm just going to load that up now because this is going to kind of give me the cleanest start point. It's a simple link. If you go to the website, you'll get the link if you give them your email address. I will put the link here because it's the same link. It's also saying this is a really bad password because it's demo. Please change it. So I'm not going to do that. So now I have Slim SEO loaded, and because of this demo, it's defaulting kind of to they've kind of preloaded the Slim SEO demo splash screen, if you will. On your load, you wouldn't get that, but this is, I'm just showing you if you want to play along at home. We can. I'll like I said, I'll put that link in a minute. But the first thing about Slim SEO that's nice is it doesn't like take over, although this looks like it takes over because of the demo, but all the settings are under settings. So it's not like the big, whole menu choice and all the things. You just go into settings and then you go to Slim SEO. And this is your settings page. And maybe at the end, Ray, if after you show, we can go into some of the setting pages for the other plugins I can turn on and off so we can kind of compare what we're looking at. And it's basically starts off with a bunch of toggles that says, do you want Slim SEO to help you with this? And what's also nice about this is that, you get the link page to the help. Slim SEO presents itself as a tool that's very easy for, the beginner, the blogger, somebody who's just saying, I just want to make sure I'm kind of doing everything right in terms of those meta descriptions and things like that. There's some level of automation that I want to set. Please just do it for me kind of thing. But you have the ability to put in your own content, and you even can take it, if you get further into it, you can even get into a level of coding that they tell you. And I don't know if we're going to see this right now, but for each of these topics, they have a little help, which goes out to their site. And it does say, it gets into what it does, how to change it manually. So this is your user guide. But you will see it does get into, hey, if you want to take it a step further, you people who are semi-developers who don't want to necessarily, you don't want to have this all bogged down your interface, but you're going to put a code snippet to go do something. You get that. Now, I'm not using these at this point. I don't. When you have it, I don't have the need. But for somebody who's looking and going, well, that's too simple for me. You can have a pretty deep level of control if you're comfortable with things like code snippets or child themes or however you put in, these types of things. But it's pretty neat how you have a slim interface to what you need. Yes, I want to have control over the meta title And more importantly, this, if you're checking on, you're saying automatically generate a meta title that you can, that ultimately you can override. I think it explains this. But that idea that it says, okay, when you put in your blog post, I'm going to put in the title that gets used by search engines automatically for you based on some parameters that you set. The default usually works, but you can manipulate the automatic stuff, but then you can just override it on a per post base, and I'll show you that on another site. So similarly, meta description, same type of thing. You know, do you want it to generate the description automatically based on pull the excerpt, pull the first X number of characters, that type of thing, or do you always want to enter it automatically? Now, for most users, from bloggers and things, you're going to leave meta title automatically on, description on. Meta robots automatically generate that. So when you're doing things like, you know, making certain pages not be shown, and this will tell you what, you know, the following pages are excluded from search results. So the meta robots, that's the little file that tells Google what to do and what not to do, and hopefully it follows those rules. So, you know, this is the automatic settings. Again, you can overwrite things, or you can say, no, I write my own meta robot. Please don't do it for me. I'll manage that. Open graph. This is really great. This is something when you're creating the putting a link on YouTube, Twitter, not YouTube, but Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, you know, what content is going over there. And I like this a lot. Again, this is to turn the automatic on, but you can always override it on a per page, per post basis. So these are all the things. Twitter cards, canonical URL, automatically generate the correct URL. This is when you potentially have links out there that might say page ID equals 1, 2, 3, 4, and you really want it to be the actual one singular, and you know it'll automatically tell the search engines which is the correct URL for that page. The rel links, this is where I get into a level of automatically generated rel links for previous and next pages. Has to do with a level of detail that I know half the people on this call know better than I do. But again, making that automatic or not is turning a toggle. The sitemap, do you want it to use the sitemap there for you automatically? On this page, here's the sitemap that it would be, where it's got and this is typical, where it's going to pull the different your posts, your pages, your taxonomies if you want, and then you have a place where you can turn that on or off. Image alt text. Now this is one I turn off, because what this does by default, unless you're very good at naming files and you're naming the file descriptively, it takes the name of a file that you load for an image and then uses that, cleans it up and uses that as your alt text to explain it. Now, if you have files that are called image 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, that'll be the alt text, which is very, very poor alt text. If you know what you're bringing in and you want to say, you know what, do it all in one swoop, you can turn that in. You can always override it. I turn that off because, again, I don't want to have file names become things. Enabling the breadcrumb shortcode, that creates a shortcode that you can put into things like your header. If you like breadcrumbs, if your theme doesn't do it, it gives you that option. I might turn that off. Automatically add a backlink to this, is, you know, turning on the RSS feed, how data goes in. You may, again, want to turn these things on and off, get into a level of detail there. The schema, it does have a level of automatically generated schema, like I said, for post pages, you know, that kind of that basic level, not necessarily, you know, when you get into a custom post type, that is something, you know, like, again, like a recipe where you have very specific things that a search engine would recognize. Here's something neat: redirection built right into it. So instead of using a redirection plugin, you know, you can set up redirections right in this plugin. So and again, right now I'm still on the demo, but getting into each link, and this is all the choices right here. So now my tabs, code. Again, there's a lot of ways that you may already be able to do this. Your theme may already have a place. You might have extension. You might want to do it just a code. But if you needed to add code, Google analytics code, the tag manager type of thing. It's built in to just put it in the box. Say, okay, what code is going to go in the header? So you might go into something that says, oh, you're adding analytics, put this code in your header. If you don't have another option to do it, this is where you would do it if you use the Slim SEO. So the meta tags, where we were setting the defaults, this is now where it's using, okay, the site, these are the defaults, and these are all the choices that you have to kind of auto-generate these types of things. So again, this is for the automatic generation. One thing that's kind of interesting is on the home page, specifically to the home page, you'll get this option if you have set your site to use blog posts as your homepage, which is an option under what is it, under general or reading? I think under reading.
Reading, yeah.
Under reading, and you set to the blog post, which is like a generated page. Now, if you want to make sure that you're controlling what that meta description, you can set it specifically to the homepage. This is just all just to set the defaults. Do you want it to be the title? Then the site, things like that, and you can see the examples. But this is all just part of the setup. Once you do it, you kind of forget it. Under social, again, if you have default social images, like say you have a post that doesn't have a featured image, and you forget to put in an image either for featured or as a specific, use this on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, your whole site could have a default, which is when it's better than when you don't have that, and then you either have a weird logo, giant size, or some other kind of image. This way you kind of covered if you put in an image that is default for the whole site, if you haven't done something at that page level, which will be overwritten if you say, always use my featured image for my thing, or I'm going to give you a specific thing that I created, and if we have time way later, I'll show you a couple of attempts, plugins, services out there where you can generate those images that show up on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn with extra niceness, your title, your logo over your featured image, things like that. Pretty neat. If you have codes that you need, again, and it explains everything, if you're using analytics tools, you need to put the code in there. This is where you would do it. Under tools, okay, so you can migrate information in, and I think this is where you're like, I'm using Yoast and I want to move to Slim SEO. I did all my tagging there, and now I just want to get away from it. This is where you would migrate in under this tool. Same for a schema import if there's, but this would be the primary one if you're migrating from one of these existing tools. And it looks like it's got pretty much kind of everything we covered. If you're using one of the redirection plugins, you can bring those right into it. If you only have a couple and you don't need that kind of level of detail, or might you say, I love the redirection plugin, it gives me what I need, I'm going to stick with that. When you get into this here, so this is kind of telling you on the redirects stuff. Let's see. This I'm not going to spend too much time because I don't know enough about it. I'll have to look more into it. It's not analytics. This is.
Looks like it is almost. That's weird.
Yeah, it's a kind of analytics, isn't it? Top external. This is from your site to what you're linking to.
Yeah, I wonder if these are samples though.
Yeah. So. This is interesting. This kind of gets into, let's see if they have a overall help. This is again where we're scan the links, scan all links. This also might turn into the upsell into that other tool where it's like we can look at it, but now if you want to do more to
that one, do that later.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I apologize. This is the demo.
Yeah.
So the demo includes the link manager and the schema.
Oh, those are the pro features?
So the pro features are included.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. I'm like, what is this?
Stop where you are, then stop.
Sneak peek of the demo. These are the 2 paid services where now it's doing all of the things that I'm looking at it going, what is this level of detail that I don't have?
That's pretty good for free. Do you want to not to interrupt you, Peter, do you want to, I can show SEO Press a bit, just show, it's basically, like I keep saying, they're all very similar.
Yeah.
I'll do that. So here's our loose structure of this.
Why don't you take over, you do it, and then we can get into like what it looks like on a post.
Right, exactly. And then we'll show the pro features, and then we'll talk a little bit more wacky stuff that is there. So, and Sue wanted me to let you know, Peter, too. She had to drop off, but she's going to watch the recording, so she was looking forward to seeing Slim SEO.
Very good.
Oops, took over.
I'm curious, while Ray's doing this, does anybody use Slim SEO? Have you heard about it? Have you tried it and not liked it? What are people using?
Yeah, put in the chat, if you don't mind, put in the chat what SEO plugin you are using or you're most familiar with. Slim looks, again, it's funny that they all do look very, very similar. Slim does look slim. I will give it that. It looks a little bare bonesy, but that's okay. But it has the features. I mean, I like that sometimes. So
yeah, and it has very little overhead. That's 7 megabytes of files. You know, for those, there are people get very, they want to make sure that, hey, I don't want to put stuff on my site that I don't need.
Again, performance-wise and etc. So SEO Press, as Peter showed, and I think I showed earlier, this is the free version is available on the WordPress repository. That's where I got it from. So I have this just demo site. So I'm going to show this in a second, but also I'll go back and forth a little bit to their actual site. So if you search for seopress.org, this shows you the paid features, what's there versus free. But I'll mention this too, because I actually think that Yoast and some of these other sites, I'm not sure so much about Slim SEO, you would know more so, Peter, but some of these SEO plugin sites, to be honest, if you never use the plugin, some of them are just great free resources. I mean, you see that quite a bit in the SEO world. So for example, if you just look here, like starter guides, SEO ebooks, FAQs, and some of the paid tools, I don't use any of them anymore. What's Ahrefs, and those are deep off-page SEO, but sometimes they're worth checking out just for some of the free resources. I mean, you can get easily overwhelmed. And in fact, Google also, just if you want to get more overwhelmed, Google Search Central, you can just search for this, has tons of, they have their own YouTube page showing you search basics. So the thing I do like about SEO Press, is I'll show it in a second, is they have really great documentation, I feel, and they pull that into the product too. So if you're interested in finding out things or best practices, you can either get to it directly from within your WordPress site or just go search for it on their site within documentation. But before I activate it, because again, I think we went over this, but I just want to, when we talk on-page SEO, I really want to be clear, this is what we mean, and this is truly on the page. So for example, if I look at, I'm going to look at just this site. So it's a demo site, completely brand new, blank, has nothing but the latest WordPress 2025 theme. And so this sample page, I'll open this up in incognito so we don't get the admin bar. Right now, there is no SEO plugin turned on this site. So if you look at this one page, for example, and I go to view page source, right now, this is how the page looks. I happen to have indexing turned off just because I didn't want the site indexed. But when we're talking meta and those kind of things, we'll look at this again when I turn the SEO plugin on a little bit. But this is a lot of stuff we're talking about, things that are behind the scenes that users don't see, visitors of the site won't see, but it's adding stuff to your page. The plugin is doing that. It's putting that content out there so that when a visitor, when like a search engine crawler comes by, it picks up that information. So this is all, again, not visible to any front end person, but behind the scenes, that's kind of what's happening. So let me show. I won't go through the full setup like Peter did for Slim SEO. Sorry, let me get back to install plugins. Oh, there it is. Sorry, it's on another tab. So SEO Press, again, free version, paid version. Free version, to be honest, for 80–90% of people is good enough. Unless you're doing something a little bit more advanced, there's other ways. Even those little advanced things we'll talk about, there's other free plugins that will do most of it. So yeah, I'll walk through this a little bit. I'm not going to go crazy on this. So this one has a little bit of more of a friendly wizard thing saying, hey, some of the things that Peter showed, it also will show you too. So I'll breeze through this a little bit. But it's kind of nice. It holds your hand, shows you all the things you can go to, gives you some notifications. But if you look at it, I won't dive into all of these, but it's the same thing, just laid out a little bit differently. titles and meta, XML is sitemaps, the social cards, analytics. He talked about instant indexing. This is kind of neat for the free version. I don't know if Slim has this or not, but one thing that's a little bit confusing to people sometimes is when you add something to your site, and so you add new content, a new page, a new post, whatever. You're like, well, how come it's not showing up in Google? Why is it? How long does it take? There's ways that you could, force your content to Google so it gets indexed immediately. It's kind of air quotes. That doesn't have to, but it should speed up that process as opposed to waiting for that spider thing to kind of come back later and pick it up. And as I said, again, this is all the free plugin too. All these, if you want to just get more familiar with SEO in general, you can download all these things. But I'll do this real quick, again, 5 minutes or less. So, configure, let's say, here we go. So one of the first things it says, just like Peter showed on Slim, it's like, all right, if you already had an existing SEO plugin, let's say you're moving from Yoast, you could, if you had all of that work done, somebody else did that work for you, you don't want to lose that. You don't want to, start from scratch. You can import, in this case, it's a blank site. Very similar again, like Slim had, so by default, it'll use your site title, it's saying, do you want to just use the site title that's saved in WordPress, or maybe let's say your site title is too long, or you want to make it a little bit more friendly, etc. You can change this and say, all right, stick this in. So all this information with the double parenthesis, percent signs, think of that as like a placeholder. That's going to be used later for your metadata. So, again, let's say you have an alternative site title. But here's one kind of cool thing. We start to see those graphs that Peter talked about as well. So, what is this site like a personal site or is it a business site? Well, let's say it's a business site. What's the name of the business? Let's say it's Ray's Business. Here you can put in a logo. So I think I uploaded my stupid little Web Geek logo there. You can put in your phone number. Let's say, and then that is obviously Europe. So I'm just saving this. And here's where I won't do this, but I can put in, your Facebook page, everything associated to your site, your LinkedIn, et cetera, your social accounts. And then again, this is still in the wizard. So, do you want to disable indexing on anything? Well, you probably don't for posts or pages. I mean, you want to just leave these. So yes, they are indexed. I mean, you can exclude things individually. We'll talk a little bit more about some examples that, let's say, like you may have a thank you page at the end of a form submission. It's like, there's no point in having that indexed, but it's other things in your site you can individually exclude. In this case, I want everything. Here's some funny things though. It says, all right, do you want to start excluding, let's say, date archives? Well, these are fine, author archives. Okay, but if I'm not really running a blog, maybe these are things that you do want to exclude because, what's the point? I mean, it probably shouldn't pick anything up, but if all I have are pages and not posts, maybe that is something that you can uncheck. But here's a good one too, tags. I see this come up sometimes. If you look at your Google Search Console, tags really can show up as like duplicative content in the search index. So it's like, well, here it allows you at the site level to be able to exclude those. So I'm wrapped up with the, let's see, save and continue. I'm wrapped up with the wizard. I'm going to say, yeah, I want to have their SEO meta box. It's kind of their fancier meta box. I'll show what that looks like later. We look at pages and posts. You can skip the sales pitch for it. But there we go. So right now, what did it do? So at a fundamental level, what happened? All right, I set some settings, but it really did something. If I go back to the sample page again, so remember, this is what it looked like before. If I refresh this page, and now if I look at the page source, it added in meta description. So here's one thing. So meta description, for example, that's been thrown in here. These meta properties, these are saying it's an organization type. Here's my Facebook. If I had the links to this is where it showed it. Here's my Twitter card, et cetera, et cetera. So this is when again, on-page SEO, it's adding this to your page. This isn't anything off of it or not. So that's it. There's no magic. It's there for you to see behind the scenes. But again, this stuff right now is information more for search indexes and crawlers and things like that. But that's really the gist of it, what it does to your site. So I'll stop there. I mean, otherwise, in terms of like so far what Peter showed, I'll show real quick. Again, from a configuration standpoint, I think it'll get more interesting is when we show what we do on a particular page or post. But for example, the titles and meta. exact same thing, like Slim SEO. I can define here across the site, how do I want that title, that meta description to show up? Do I want it to have a separator? Do I want it to have, the site title? Because this really just saves you that work of having to type this in all yourself all the time. I can do things here, say, adjust some of the settings I set in that wizard. I can go back and change my mind later, et cetera, et cetera. So, set no index, et cetera, for these different things. All of those free things, again, this is what the free site, the free plugin gives you, is all this stuff. So again, the sitemap looks just the same as the one that Peter showed. So a lot of these plugins, they all do the same thing, at least at a fundamental level. So let me stop there. I'm not going to go through every config, unless somebody has a question about any particular configuration thing. I think we'll see it more in action when we look at a post or a page. Did anything pop up in chat for questions so far about?
Not that I saw.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why don't we show, we'll take turns of, Peter, do you want to do a post or a page? I'll do the opposite. I'll just mix things up a little bit.
Keep an eye on the time too. And obviously if anybody's got anything specific that they want to ask about, or if any of our super experts want to chime in and tell us if we're missing something.
And I didn't show them, I'll show it when I'm doing my demo too. I think what can really be confusing is some of the settings are they can be overwhelming, even in the Slim and the regular one too, that there's so many, you kind of look at it and say, what am I supposed to do here? A lot of times, again, that's the 80-20 rule. Sometimes just, take the defaults that it gives you, and that is generally good enough, unless you really need to go in there and tweak something for a particular reason, but
exactly.
Many times you don't. So
and with both of these tools that we're picking, you're with SEO Press, and I started with when I first moved off of Yoast, I went to SEO Press, and I missed that original lifetime deal for like $39 or whatever that was.
I got it.
yeah. But then finding Slim is great if you really don't want to. Even the level of detail that most people just go with the default. The only thing I would say is if you're paying attention to things like the image alt text is to turn that off. Here's an example. Now this is on an experiment site that I have. Like when you first learn, one of the things it'll do things like this. Hey, let me tell you something. Your RSS feed shows full text. Fix this. It brings you over to that page, and this is where for each post in the feed include the excerpt, and then you'll get that. Now you can decide to keep that, but that kind of welcomes site scraping and things like that, which is why they're kind of saying you probably don't want to put your full text in, and just that one little thing, okay. Once you do that, then you'll never see that again. On this particular experiment site, I've got a whole lot of posts. So if we were to look at any one of these posts, I like the Bobcat one, just for example, we'll show you where the settings are here. And this is just so that the theme that I've got going right now is I think the Raft full site editing block theme. I mean, I could change it over to Cadence or whatever. The point being that these plugins work with any theme, and it's where the meta boxes go. So here's my post that I've the title, the content, the excerpt here, right? So how to, where you've got your featured image that you select, your excerpt that you have now. So this is all writing the content, and then here at the bottom, you can, if this is closed for now with Slim SEO, and most of them you open it up to see the content, and it's telling you. So my default that it's bringing over is the code. This is the code for the post title, the page, if there's a page number underneath it, a separator, and then in this case the site title, which I have, and then it tells you this is what is going to show, which is the site title on experiment.press. It tells you the character count 77, recommended length 66. Not necessarily saying you can't do what you want to do, but that just keeps in mind what Google currently, right? So these tools are always changing, but currently kind of shows when you're getting those the snippets on a search engine result page, a SERP. The meta description now is pulling over the auto description, which again is defined by those settings. But I can override this. I can say, maybe I want to, and this is where now, if you're paying attention to a level, you could say, I like the default. I've got I put time writing an excerpt that makes sense. That's what I want to have in the excerpt. But you can overwrite that, and you can pull whatever the right search engine. I'm gonna so you can overwrite that. No, you wouldn't put this. You would put some good text that I didn't prepare. Maybe I would say I wouldn't even grab this first one. Maybe just say I like this.
Sort of the SEO rule of thumb for like meta descriptions was supposed to be having something compelling enough that the person seeing it in search results would want to click on it, so.
Yeah, exactly. And so that is, again, if you're think about what you're seeing when you see a search engine result and you get the page title, and then you get that little bit of blurb that says what it's about. If it is that grabbing that first, especially if it grabs, that first text that has nothing to do with anything, that often happens. This is where, like, you would spend some time writing something that makes sense, paying attention to, there is a word count thing telling you, going, hey, you got way too many words. You got 50 to 160 characters work well. This is where I would write, and you're not keyword stuffing. You shouldn't be in 2024. You're writing that compelling kind of thing. Facebook image, Twitter image, they will default to the post's featured image unless I want to put something else in there. Not that this is the right image to put, but say you've put some time creating now a branded image, an image that's specific, that you're being very conscious about what's going to show up in social media versus just that image. And another thing at the end is, like, there are tools out there, weirdly not exploited nearly enough as they can. I know a couple companies have been trying to push these, but that can automatically generate those and integrate in with these tools like Slim SEO. So Slim SEO there are tools that will say, okay, we're going to put in the correct Facebook image there. Again, the canonical, defining what that is, using the default. And you do have that option to hide from search results if there's a reason why you don't want to have this page indexed. But that's kind of it. Where it gets kind of into the interesting part is when you start working with some custom images for your social media posts that really make your content look great on LinkedIn, for example. And maybe later we'll do a demo specifically on that. But those are the meta boxes for Slim SEO.
Yes, let me grab, and again we'll bounce back and forth, because I think it's interesting just to compare the two of them of what you get, and it is the same. It's all about the presentation, I think, that differs. So again, as you're looking at your SEO plugin that you may have on your site, you probably do say the same things that we're showing here, but maybe it's presented a little bit differently. Maybe it's under a tab or something else. So I'll actually stick with, I think posts probably have more data on my dummy site right now. So so this, again, I think, as Peter showed too, again, this is SEO Press. So when I'm looking at my list of posts, you can turn some of these things on or off. You can see add some stuff into my list view here. The score, for example, maybe I don't care about that. But the no index thing, I think, is important, because you may not realize that, why is this page not showing up? Oh, somehow it's been a page has been tagged as no index, so it will not show up in search results. Again, that could be a deliberate thing, or maybe it's just accidental. So these two, actually, all of these things are now exposed into my list. So you can easily, the nice thing about that is, sometimes without even going into the post itself, you can just quick edit and make some changes here to some of the SEO information. I like that. If you're doing something in bulk, for example, or you're checking things in bulk rather than clicking on everything. So that's a nice little feature. I don't, did Slim SEO do that as well? Do you know, Peter? Are you able to edit some of the tags in the quick edit?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I think that's probably pretty common for most of them. But this, I may actually have to jump to a real post to show. So here's this like their new interface. It's I've kind of gotten more used to it, I guess, but it sort of puts it out of the way instead of just having a meta box hanging around at the bottom of your page. What you can do is you just click on this thing and now it pops it up. You know, again, a little UI bell and whistle. But all this thing that Peter showed, it's doing the exact same thing. I think the one thing that I kind of like is you do get to see this little snippet preview. So it does kind of show it to you like this is what it would look like in search results. Obviously, this is just dummy text and everything in here. But it does give you an idea, of the same thing. It does that count too to say here it's 0 of 60. Here's your maximum limit. Let me show one from a real site for a second because I just want to see what it looks like with real data in here. This one I think I'm using it just on the bottom. I don't have the fancier new one, but this shows. So here's what this post is going to look like. Keeping indoor cats happy. That was a good thing.
Right. I think this is a good example of where, this is a feature that takes some resources. It took some files to do it. That the Slim SEO plugin has decided to say, well, I'm showing you what it is, but I'm not going to show you. But this is very valuable for those who do want to see the whole thing. Again, good choices and options for folks who say, you know what, I'm never going to look at that part. I just want it to work default wise. But, this is again where the Slim part, has its pros and cons.
I kind of like this one as a sanity check because at least this is showing here's what the featured image is going to look like. Here's what it's going to look like in results. And again, you have the mobile preview. You can look either way to say what it's going to look like. So that's just one little thing. And then like this meta description for this one, I think I did change it just because I think the original couple paragraphs weren't enough to summarize it. But I'll go back so this one actually has a pro version. So I'm going to hop back and forth between these two sites. But the free version, the nice thing too, as I said, I really like the built-in documentation and tooltips. So it gives you all this info. And not only that, being the nerd, it shows you what it's using. So behind the scenes, yep, it's going to put in a title or use the title tag in here. So the meta description, oops, let me scroll down. It may be cut off from my screen, but it shows you meta name, description, etc. So it doesn't, it's not magic. It's telling you what it's going to do to your page behind the scenes. But I like that. It's a cool thing, especially for beginners or a tag you're not familiar with. Like, what do you mean by this? Oh, here's what crawlers will see. So there's a lot of instructional stuff built in here as well. Social, very similar. Here's what your thumbnail will look like, X, et cetera, et cetera. Couple things. I think I think Slim does this as well. I'm not sure. So here you can set at a page level to say, don't display this page in search engine results. So as I said, why would you do that? Well, maybe there's a page that is just, very light in content, or for whatever reason, you're like, this, there's nothing special about this particular page. There's no point in indexing it. So you can turn it off in here. The whole thing with the canonical.
Checkout pages and carts.
Checkout page, exactly. Yeah, I was thinking more like I've done it for clients where it's like a thank you page at the end of a cart process or something of a purchase.
Yeah, thank you pages too.
Yeah, it's like, what's the point of doing that one? So these are some other neat ones too. Well, where's the one about I'll talk about this a little bit later, but the no snippet part, what that may be interesting in the future about what that may entail. And it just, spoiler alert, AI. This has something to do with AI in the future. And then redirection. So this is the free version. Really neat. It's kind of built into here. So at a page level, I can say, all right, maybe this one temporarily I want it to redirect someplace else. I can do a couple things. It has some basic content analysis built in, again, to the free version. You can, keywords we'll talk a lot more about later, but let's say I was looking for, what was it saying? Let's say I want this thing to be about kiwis. How am I doing on the kiwi keyword? That was a terrible choice, but it'll show me, oh, you're missing key. It's not in your headers. It's not in your H1. It's not in your thing. So it'll do a basic kind of content analysis for you for keyword stuff. And then I forget what overview is. So it's very similar to Slim, but just maybe a little bit more polished, or just the UI looks a little bit different to it.
Well, it definitely has more features. I mean, I wouldn't shortchange it for that. You've got you've got all of those choices to go. Whereas Slim's, the attempt is, maybe in that 80-20 rule, you're either going to index it or not. You're going to, that type of thing. So it certainly does reduce the number of choices, at least out of the box. So,
and again, for free. That's what I'm always shocked at. Like, back to your point, why am I using this one? It's not because it's the best. I did get that lifetime deal that highly influenced it, and it did what I needed it to do. I'm like, this is pretty good, for free. And it's gotten better, I think, especially the more they've added in the documentation. To me, I think this has gotten certainly better over time.
It's a very good SEO plugin, and it does a great job. And it's a lot lighter weight than Rank Math, and it's definitely squirrely and definitely Yoast. And also that little blue icon on the front, you can turn that off. That is for the people that don't like that. You can.
Yeah, because this older site, because they're still doing stuff with the old classic editor for some of their blog posts. This one just has it as a meta box on the bottom. So yeah, the newer one has it as a little thing you see on the side. Sometimes that little,
but that you can turn it off is what I'm saying.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
That little icon is only there if you want it there. You can
move it around.
I don't like it on my site, so I turn it off.
Yeah. So that's the post part of it. We're coming up to 7:30, so maybe we'll talk a little bit about pro features. Do you mind, Peter? I'll stick, since I got the screen for a second.
I have no pro features. So I'm done.
So what does pro give you, and is it worth it? And to be honest, I don't use many of the pro features. I'll tell you a couple of them that I do use. So again, free is free. You got a lot of stuff. So why would you want to get pro? If you look at their sales pitch, let's see here. We'll talk AI a little bit. This is fairly new. I haven't used a lot of this, but it's kind of neat, and I think it's maybe worthy of its own demo in the future as we talk about AI stuff. So here's a cool thing. It'll actually generate some of these things for you using AI. Might be useful if you're putting this onto a site that has a long history of blog posts or something. You're like, oh geez, I want to go in there and redo everything. Again, your mileage may vary how well it generates anything, but that's kind of a neat integration. Some of the local SEO stuff, primarily it's going to create a local schema for you. To be honest, I think the better thing is just to work on your Google business profile. That's really where local SEO gets most of it, or has most valuable. But this is kind of at least joining that up to it, saying yes, I am a local business. Then there's some other things, the WooCommerce integration, the whole analytics and stats thing. I think that's what you were showing, Peter, for Slim. This has something similar. I've never used this. I tend to use either go directly to analytics or go directly look at this in other places. But having it built into your dashboard could be kind of neat. Again, schema stuff as well. Some of these things I don't need. Some other features, I haven't tried these yet. These are fairly new. And don't quote me on this. I think they're built into the pricing if you get the full package. But one thing there's two things that are kind of cool. One is a site audit. So site audit, I'll show another tool, a free tool that does something like this. This will run an audit to say, all right, it'll check all of your metadata stuff. So your URLs, your headings, etc. Is anything broken or needing attention? It'll do that for you. I think it's a separate tool. Or actually, no, I'm sorry. This has the pro version in here. So I believe. Oh, there it is. So it's actually built into the tool on the back end of your site. So you can run this directly from your website and not a different tool. So that I haven't played around with that, to be honest. This might be an interesting thing. The one that did catch my eye, is the OpenAI thing. So yeah, I think we talked. So not only will it automatically generate using AI the meta title and descriptions, but it'll also do alt text for your images too. Interesting. I'm curious how well that's going to work.
Beware.
I
mean, we can make things very convenient for us. It doesn't mean it's good for the use. So, but the AI tools can be a good starting point.
Right.
So that never, I use AI a lot. I'm not shunning AI. I'm just saying
it will talk a lot more about AI, I think, in a second. But just real final, I'll shut up for a second about the site audit thing. So yeah, this is built in. It's kind of nice. I'm not sure how well it works, but for people who want more detail or are cheap and just want something that kind of does the same thing, Screaming Frog is just one of the two. There's many of these tools out there. This one I still use on occasion. I'll show, I think I have an older version of it. So what you do with this tool, let me just point it to this page. Get out of here. Not that page. Let me go to a page, sorry. The sample page, sure, why not? So you can do this for an entire site or a specific page as well too. When you run this, the free version has a limit of, I forget what it is, 500 links or something like that. So for an entire site, the free version may choke on you, but if you point at a specific page, it does tell you some neat things about it. So tons and tons of information. Some of this may be hard to see. I think we actually might have used this 3 years ago. We did an SEO demo, I think. Or at some point, I know in one of our past presentations that I've gone through this. Maybe Bill was on doing that one with us. So lots of information could be a little bit overwhelming, but it's kind of neat that this will show you on an existing site, do you have something that's maybe non-indexable, or maybe something that is, this will show you like all the links on a page. It'll show you the load time too. What's the size of the page? So I find this tool often not only good for SEO, sometimes for performance checking too. If I run this against a site, you can go back to the beginning and say, all right, show me the page sizes. So what's my largest page? So again, this tool, free for a certain point, kind of expensive for the real paid version of Screaming Frog. So unless you're an SEO person doing that, maybe not worth it. Maybe it's more worth it just to get the pro version of one of these plugins.
Yeah, these were the premium for Slim. Those were the two premium tools. One of them was the whole link manager and things like that. It's really funny. I have from a million years ago the web audit tools. There was a whole suite from this one. I forget, it was the Screaming Frog kind of competitor. I haven't opened those in forever amount of time. Anything that is focusing on keyword, I know I'm in I wouldn't say the minority, but there's certainly people definitely. And it's funny because Sue left. Her daughter is a search engine optimization expert consultant paid to do things like that. So I never mean to dismiss that, but it's always been.
It's tough, and again, even myself, in terms of my clients, I do enough to do the basic on-page stuff. I'm very clear that I have neither the interest, the tools, the patience to be a real SEO kind of guru. I'll show, speaking of free, sorry, I forgot to show this one as well too. Your friends too, well, at least today, your friend with air quotes, is Google itself. Google provides a rich suite of tools for doing checking on-page things. So, for example, if you go to Google Search Console, we're talking about how do you get your site indexed. You should definitely connect your site to Google Search Console. The plugins will do that for you as well. SEO Press has a spot for that. I won't show it. But this one thing we talked about was schema and these rich results. So, for example, I'll show, this is another site. Sorry, let's get to the home page. That is the site. So for certain types of data, for example, events, this is probably a good one to show, the events page. Those events are something unique that you want to make sure that those are structured properly. And I think I should say by default, but I'm pretty certain that if you're using like the events calendar, it's producing events using this kind of schema language. So if you look at what does this look like from a search engine perspective, what that means is you're describing the data so it knows that these are events. So why should you care about that? Because quite often, depending on we talk about those different search intent, events can display differently in your search results. If you ever did a search for like, hey, what's happening in my neighborhood this weekend or whatever, you can see this found 12 events. So each one of these events, I'll pick the bingo night event. Yeah, it's missing some fields, but behind the scenes on that page, it's saying this is an event. Here's the name, here's the description, here's the start date, end date, all this metadata behind the scenes that is available so that if you're looking at, as I said, like depending on the rich snippet you see in search results, it may display that differently than it would something else. The classic example from most people have seen is like a recipe. there is there's a metadata format for those. So if you're searching for a recipe, they could show up in search results showing you something of like, oh, it's a recipe. It's not just a website. So that's where, in products too, obviously another one too. So those kind of things, those kind of custom data, you do want to make sure that that's where an SEO plugin helps out, or the plugin you're using, like WooCommerce, whatever, should support something like that too. Just for sake of time, and I'll do a little bit of sharing, but this is more of a conversation among everybody. I thought one other thing that'd be interesting is talking a little bit about the future of search. We only got 20 minutes, so this will be a high level of search. But just to, kind of talk about a couple of things. I'm sure most people have seen like an AI overview from Google. So one thing that's interesting though, I've heard some conversations about people saying they don't want their site or content showing up in search results. Well, Google actually does allow you to prevent your site from showing up in a snippet. So again, this is in the Google Search Central thing, but I didn't know this until I looked at the plugin here. So like, for example, on the SEO Press plugin, I bring up the meta box here, it was under advanced. This was that setting, the no snippet thing. So this, in theory, will say, hey, when Google sees this page, it won't use it in that snippet. Why would you want to do that? Because maybe you want people going to your site instead of seeing the snippet there and stopping. So, so I found that interesting. I'll show two more just quick AI things, and then I definitely want to have a longer talk just about AI in general. So as I said, the plugins now are doing AI stuff. I kind of wanted to show a quick example back to where we started about search intent to show like the site I'm very familiar with. This is a Polish genealogy site that I support and maintain. But just to show how search results are different, especially now as we think about AI. So if I just search for something generic in Google, this is what Google, and prior to Google, Yahoo, Alta Vista, all those former search engines, this is what they were really good for, was this. You search for a term, it gives you a list, right? Give me a list of links. So in this case, I search for something generic, Polish genealogy. One thing that most people have noticed recently in the past couple of months or so is Reddit now is much higher in search results. That's because they have a partnership with Google. This is interesting. So hey, we'll talk about that in future of search in a second. But oh, you know what? Because I think I opened this as myself. Hold on, sorry. I need to do this in it knows I own the site. So let me do this again. Oops. Polish genealogy. There we go. So I'm sorry. If I search for just Polish genealogy by itself, generically, it gives me a list of websites. One of these sites, somewhere here on the bottom, somewhere, ooh, it's all the way down to page 2, is, oh, here it is. Now here's a site that I help support. This one's from Connecticut, Polish, genealogy of Connecticut Northeast. So one of our pages is always a highly ranked page. If I just search a generic term, it's like the 3rd. Sometimes it bounces down to the 7th or 8th, etc. But if I search for something more of an intent question, again, back into Google, so something a little bit more like, sorry, I'm copying this from a Word document, so how do I begin with Polish genealogy? Our page jumps to the top. It recognizes, oh, this article that we have, this beginner's guide, which is kind of a long article, lots of information, that jumps up because it's the content. Again, it's not just a generic, tell me about Polish genealogy. But what I find really fascinating is, maybe this is where we'll get into our future of search discussion, is if I go to a tool like Perplexity, for example, and I type this in just a little bit differently, the question, so how do I get started researching my Polish ancestry? So in Perplexity, for people who aren't familiar with this is another free AI tool. But what's cool about Perplexity is Perplexity actually does include web results in the searches.
Yeah.
So a lot of these answers are things, some of this is coming from the site, because I know these answers, but what I do like right now about Perplexity is it will show you its references. So as I look in here, there's a site that I support. It's, some of these answers are coming from that, but they're all commingled, with other things. So again, depending how you phrase the question, depending on where you're going, you're going to get different results. So I think, this is my controversial opinion about the future of search, I think this whole thing that the whole thing we just talked about is useless. I think it's going to change a lot. I think this whole method of meta descriptions, meta this kind of stuff, all that stuff we've been talking about trying to tweak things and keywords. To me, that feels like it's dying, if not dead, in a couple of years, and maybe sooner, because language models, those LLMs, they don't need that stuff. They don't need you to put an H1 tag in the proper thing. They can understand the content, and they can use that then, I think, to really serve up search results. So that's Ray's opinion of where is SEO going to be in a couple of years, and maybe right around the corner. I think it's going to be very, very different than where it is. I think we're seeing it already. So, Peter, what do you think? You're our AI guy.
Yeah, I welcome anybody, but I get so much. I use Perplexity a lot. I use ChatGPT now. That search engine. It has web searching available to it. They keep adding more and more features and all. Sometimes I feel bad that I'm not going to the sources because somebody is writing the content. Where it gets really, really, really messy is more and more of the content is being AI generated. So now you have artificial intelligence giving you answers to something that was written by artificial intelligence kind of stuff, which is why the authenticity of the Gardening with a Madman blog is going to have its own place in this world, because it's going to be where people are going to want authentic content versus now what we get when we do certain types of searches. I honestly don't know in terms of, I am the definitive answer to this question. It's like intermingled with all the other answers in an answer that's all about providing a number of solutions and all. So it's really weird where it's going, whereas search engine optimization all going to be, all about, well, what's the final transaction that you're looking to get? Where do you make your money?
And it may depend, going back to search intent, it may depend on what kind of search you're doing. If you're doing I know my site, bring me to YouTube, that doesn't matter. That, no AI is going to replace that. You know where you're going. It's more of those informational, educational, those types of ones. I think that's where things are going to change a lot. But back to Sherry put on there too about content. I think the thing that scares me a little bit about that is Google has been saying for a long time, good content, concentrate on good content. But when you look at what they just did with Reddit, that to me was, again, not that I've always trusted Google. That's a little borderline sneaky, disingenuous. Are the Reddit answers more authoritative than somebody who actually wrote like a giant blog post or an expert in the field? No. Why are they showing up on top? Because there's a deal with Reddit. So I think that's the other thing too. How many more of those, especially the AI search engines, how many more deals are they striking? I know right now the New York Times is basically suing like ChatGPT and those other ones too. But what if they start making a deal with Perplexity? So their search results show up first or somebody else. So it's a funny thing. That's why I said the whole thing about looking at search, you have your index part and then you have the algorithms part. I think the indexing thing is still going to continue. I mean, there's still text out there, but I think it's the algorithms part, what factors in what shows up first. That's the piece that's changing, I think, quite drastically. So
yeah. Anybody else want to chime in? I can show something that's kind of interesting too, but
does anyone else? I guess I know we don't have a lot of like super SEO experts on here, but I'm curious for people who are doing more SEO. Like I'm doing light SEO, to be honest. I'm doing the basics, but are you seeing things that you're changing in terms of your own site or sites you manage for other people? It's like, is it either AI things you're using instead, or maybe cutting back on some of the old, rules of what people told you to do? Even some of like the snippet stuff we talked about, like 60 characters. That's for search results, but ChatGPT, it doesn't care about 60 characters. What's the point of that? It can take in thousands of pages of something and summarize it. So
my Google results are giving me the whole answer at the top of the page. I'm not even seeing search results because I got the answer up top.
Wow.
Yeah, Eagle.
Why'd you show, Peter, what you said you were going to show?
To show a couple of the types of things. So what's one of the uses where I'm like, this is not citing, but this is like as a Meetup content generator, I go here now and say, give me summations. I took all the WordPress 6.7 update, like what's coming in 6.7 and all for our last meetup, and some of the top blog posts and all, and I loaded that into the Google's tool, the Notebook LM, which now is saying from these sources, then I could ask it questions or get things like, here's using Chat GPT to say, okay, give me a comparison of, key features of search engine optimization tools, and then, which tools do or don't have it. Then I ran it through a different thing. This isn't sourced anywhere. Now I also have to double check its validity. Everybody please be careful that, while the answers are getting better, you have to check, unless you're using a tool like a Perplexity that makes it that much easier to check. Now, again, Chat GPT is also adding things like I was asking about. There was a post that Justavok from Yoast put out about, the market share. And I always question, where's the source of that data coming through? So I asked it, and it's kind of interesting now how Chat GPT is bringing in some of those sources. So it'll say something and then tell me where it got it from. So that's an interesting.
That's your pro version, though. I don't think
yeah, that's my
version for us regular folk.
Yeah. And then with Perplexity is, again, this kind of thing. Okay, given a talk on search, please describe the difference between on-page. Like how would you do it, and what's the shorthand of that, and where did you get that information? So it's very nice that SEMrush put this content out, but I know what the source is, but I also know that this is a nice, succinct way of presenting it. So it is a very interesting place that we're in.
It's funny. The other thing I saw, it didn't show up in the example I showed, but I think when I was playing around with Perplexity earlier, I saw it actually come back with some search results that are links to videos and YouTube as well too. So that was kind of off on the side as sources as well. So you see there, you have search images, search videos, I'm sorry, in that option too. So, I mean, that's the other funny thing when we talk about search. Yeah, there we go. The other funny thing about search.
By the way, don't pay attention to this guy.
Yeah, I remember reading something recently too, where like you almost have to consider YouTube as its own search engine. They're saying that's like the number 2, like in terms of volume of searches, it's like Google, but then it's also YouTube is its own separate thing for search. So a lot of it, especially instructional stuff. I mean, what's the first thing Google shows you a lot of times? The video. Show me how to jumpstart a car or something. Like I'd rather see the video than see the text as I'm freezing out there in the cold trying to jump.
100%. But as we always say, especially if you're doing something like learning WordPress, YouTube is a great resource as long as you are a very informed student and understand what you're getting. So when I said don't pay attention to this guy, I'm not. It sounds terrible for me to say it this way. I forget his name. He's a top result of many, many searches, but he sells. This goes back to my thing about Influence WP and the affiliate stuff. He's selling affiliate link stuff, but he's also pushes Elementor, and I don't know if he's still doing that, but he has a very, very specific pro. Use this package, use my links, get the affiliate kind of stuff, which is not an unbiased, purely let me teach you the options of the education, things like that. So you get all of that kind of stuff. Now, in one case, I might take that and say, now I'll go to AI and say, tell me the pros and cons of what this guy is presenting, or is there any caveats of this? This is where I use AI to double check some other sources and kind of pit, or I'll have
the AIs off each other.
I do that. I get a result and say, hey, check this. Or when I mentioned this before, when I use it to create like a little plugin or something to do just the thing I want, it's faster for me to go and use one of the tools to write the code than to go try to find a plugin that does it. But one might not be the best code, and I might say, hey, this is what I want to do. This is the code I got. What do you think? Oh, here's better code. It's absolutely fascinating.
So I mean, I think the takeaway from this is not, again, we don't know what the future's going to hold in terms of search and SEO, but I still think, going back to all those things we talked about, on page, things you can control, things you can concentrate on. The whole off page thing is a we're not even touching that today about how much that's worth or if it's worth it. But things are changing. The whole, like we said, and things have changed already. The whole keyword stuffing that Peter was saying, all that kind of old tactics. If you read an SEO book from 8, 9 years ago, a lot of it is irrelevant now because Google has been smarter, and search in general is getting smarter. So concentrate on what you can. And I would say it's like performance optimization too. Don't go crazy. I've known people gotten lost in trying to turn every knob and everything to make everything perfect and cut things down, get that grade of A or the Yoast thing, get a perfect green. Don't. And especially when you see what's coming around the future, I think some of that work, quite honestly, is going to be complete waste of time. I think there's so much new technology now that can get the context of your content without all of this funny behind the business tags and meta tags thing. So, and again, hopefully what you saw today too is a lot of these SEO plugins, we just picked these two. We could have picked two completely different ones. And again, 80%, 90% of them would have been pretty much the same. The pro things are a little bit different. That's where there's some differentiation, but the free ones.
Yeah. For what that 80% rule and for what most people need and all, but I do see people still, and getting so caught in all the little flags of some plugin that's trying to tell what to do, or I'm at 92 and I need to get to 93. And it's like, you can manipulate those numbers, but if your content is worthless, it doesn't matter. And I don't know how that isn't communicated enough, where yes, doing all those things, this is where SEO Press, Slim SEO, and the others will help you do things right in terms of like the technical, and then guide you and give you the tools where you can have control over things. Beautiful, perfect. But you also have to be hopefully creating good content, and please not be creating nothing but AI generated content, which is just regurgitating some other content. It's a weird, interesting world.
And I think the thing with these tools too, sort of closing thought, is kind of like pick one, especially one of the more popular ones that Peter showed, and spend time learning it. I'll be honest. Again, I don't. So prepping for this, I'm like, oh boy, when did that get added? There's some newer features and things. I mean, the thing that always blows my mind is I've supported sites that have had Yoast. That thing gets updates like constantly. It used to be like a joke. 3 times a week you'd get an update. I'm like, why? Like, SEO like hasn't changed that much. It's just, I mean, sometimes they're pumping in new things. I mean, that's why it's so big. But if you're gonna pick Slim or any other one, most of them again do similar things. Learn the basics of the tool, learn where to find things, and do what you can there. Control what you can control. So hopefully this was interesting to folks. Hopefully, again, if you have questions afterwards, if you're using a different SEO plugin, if you're, don't see something that we showed, again, bring it up on our Facebook page. I'm sorry, in the group, our Facebook group. Let us know. And again, if you have other topic ideas, suggestions for the coming year, let us know. But otherwise, thanks everyone again for joining and hanging around. And
happy holidays. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
2025. Unbelievable.
Yeah. All right. Have a good one, everyone. Have a good night. See ya. Bye.